Individually, we are all responsible. Oh, I'll just turn this off. So individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions. We can choose, we can all choose to challenge. We can choose to call out gender bias. We can choose to call out racism and inequality. We can all choose to seek out and celebrate women's achievements. And collectively, we can all help create an inclusive world. But we have to do it together. It takes all of us. Now, this is a photo. I love this photo. This is a photo when I'm kind of feeling down in the last year. I go back to this photo and I look at it. So this is a photo, and obviously it was pre-COVID, because now when we see people that close together, we kind of tense up. This is a photo from the 2019 WeBank conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was one of the last in-person events that I attended before the pandemic. And I love the energy of this photo. I love the excitement, the smiles. It is a perfect representation of what happens when women come together to learn, to grow, and to support one another. And this was our Team Canada at this largest US conference for women. We gave each other the permission to ask questions, to push boundaries, and to inspire, so we can all be strong together. We wanted to challenge the status quo and embrace diversity. But here's the reality. While we celebrate International Women's Day today, we must continue to support women every day to close the gender gap and embrace a more inclusive world. And that's our goal at BDC. Working for the Bank for Canadian Entrepreneurs, our mandate is to help all business owners thrive. And we are truly a nation of entrepreneurs. There are more than 1.1 million small and medium-sized businesses in Canada, which makes up 99% of all the businesses in Canada. Yet women still make up a relatively small piece of that. So of the 1.1 million businesses, only 28% have a woman involved in the ownership. And when you look at majority women ownership of our small and medium-sized business, that number drops to 16%. Excuse me. We know that women and other entrepreneurs from diverse communities face unique challenges in starting and growing their businesses. And that's like from a lack of access to capital, to having smaller networks, to having a lack of mentors, role models, and other resources. And our research shows that these barriers have tangible outcomes. Only 5% of Canadian tech companies have a woman CEO, and 43% of Indigenous small business owners consider access to financing as an obstacle to their growth. Women are less likely to seek debt and equity financing when starting their business, and they generally, if they do decide to seek financing, they generally face more challenges. So systemic barriers prevent some Black entrepreneurs from being able to access financing. And did you know that a third of Canadian LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs have lost opportunities in their business just because of who they are? And newcomers to Canada may have little or no credit history. They have no networks and may not even really know the language, but they come with great entrepreneurial experience and ideas. So as a country and as a business community, we need to address this. Diverse businesses are profitable, they're resilient, they're innovative, and they're global. So why is it important? Well, diversity is a concept that's fiercely Canadian. We live in a country rich with people, backgrounds, colors, and we are welcoming to all. And at BDC, we believe that our entrepreneurial ecosystem should reflect that exactly. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's also good for business. Research shows time and time again that companies with diverse leadership teams deliver higher profits, more revenue, and better innovation. As a matter of fact, research shows that if men and women participated equally as entrepreneurs, our GDP could rise by $5 trillion globally. That's trillion with a T, and 80 billion with a B in Canada alone. And right now, that would sure help us. I mean, at the end of the day, our difference is what makes us stronger. So the pandemic has affected every single person around the globe, particularly business owners. One of BDC's most important roles has been to support entrepreneurs during difficult times. And that mission has never been more critical than during the COVID-19 pandemic. BDC stepped up to deliver relief to entrepreneurs in a time of great need. We have delivered more capital. We've given a pause on our existing clients' loan payments. We've offered many free resources, webinars, and articles to all business owners to help them with their cash flow or give them advice. We have worked with partners to see what we can do and where we can help fit in. And we know that entrepreneurs have faced very difficult decisions. I mean, 76% of entrepreneurs in Canada have reported a decrease in sales and profits. 45% have had to reduce their staff, and 39% had to take on more debt just to get through. And the pandemic has shone a light on the discrepancy with regards to gender and diversity on our business owners, and has demonstrated that women and diverse business owners have been more impacted. As COVID hit, women lost 62% of the jobs shut down in February and March, because almost all of them are in the service sector, many in low wage sectors like retail, hospitality, personal services. And by April, men had almost caught up with the job losses, but because more men are in the labor force than women, that translated into only 1 out of every 6 jobs for women versus 1 out of every 7 for men. And this extended to women business owners who were trying to run their business, keep it alive. They were the primary caregivers at home because often their kids were at home, as you know, with the schools being closed. They were becoming teachers. They were the household managers. A lot of cases, they had elderly parents that they had to worry and look after. And this all led to our Deputy Prime Minister coining the term she-sation, which many of you have probably heard in the news. And women tend to have owned businesses that are in sectors that have been the most hardest hit, like the retail and health and wellness and hospitality and personal services. So in addition, the business impacts have been huge, and we know that. In addition to the business impacts, the pandemic has had a big impact on entrepreneurials' mental health and well-being. And we can't forget about this. This is so important. Business owners are used to being resilient. They're problem solvers. They often have to put on a brave face for their employees and their clients. But this means that they often put their own health on the back burner. And it's so important that they take care of their own health. We need them to be healthy, including not only their physical health, but also their mental health. And I'm really, really pleased to hear that the Yellowknife Chamber of Commerce is part of the solution, and part of the next couple of days, you have some speakers speaking about stress and how to manage it. And that's so important. We need to keep that front of mind, because the pandemic is the biggest crisis to face business owners. So BDC, what we did is we conducted regular surveys to understand how the pandemic impacted their mental health and their well-being. And we have seen, we've done these surveys over time over the last year, and we have seen that over time, their entrepreneurs are feeling more depressed, which is probably not surprising because it just keeps on going on and on. And our latest study confirms that those negative feelings have continued to increase. In fact, our latest survey, significantly more entrepreneurs felt mental health issues and are also interfering with their ability to work. So it's actually hit a breaking point where it's actually their mental well-being is actually affecting their ability to work. We also found that pandemic has had a greater impact on certain groups. So we look at the groups, and actually it is mentally affected all entrepreneurs, but even more so female entrepreneurs, visible minority entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs who have yet to resume operations after lockdown, obviously. Women are significantly more likely to feel depressed. So 51% of the women entrepreneurs that we surveyed report that they're more likely to feel depressed. And they admit that mental health challenges are interfering with their ability to work, to run their businesses, to work with their families, and to help out at home. So this is a great reminder to all of us that we have to support one another, and we have to be kind to ourselves And when we feel we need it, we have to reach out for help. So at BDC, we started learning, we started to learn, we started to listen alongside our partners to figure out how we can help. And data started to emerge, documenting the gaps and the opportunities for women entrepreneurs, not just to survive, but also how they can thrive through the pandemic, because there have been many businesses who have. So when we surveyed them, there was 4 sort of top needs that they reported that generally came out. So the first one was obviously finding and attracting clients. So adapting their service offerings and finding new ways to connect with potential buyers and identifying customers has been the most important for them. How do they do it virtually? That was something they needed to figure out, and we were helping them do that. And that was a focus for almost 80% of women entrepreneurs in general. And just behind that, at 55% of women entrepreneurs reported that they needed to find a way to expand their distribution channels. You know, in a lot of cases, their distribution channels were cut off for some time. So they needed to find other avenues to find that distribution. Finding customers was one challenge, but then if they were able to find that customer, how do they fill the order? How do they fulfill it? The third thing that they found that they needed help with was technology. And obviously this is so important, more so now than ever. You know, some say that, you know, the year 2030 has now come to 2021 because we've had to advance so quickly. So embracing technology and finding new ways of selling online, since bricks and mortar businesses and in some cases are still closed. And then lastly was gaining the skills and the knowledge to find creative ways to adapt to new business. So they were finding, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, had to really understand and realize cash flow and what cash flow means and looking at their expenses and things like that. So it hasn't been easy, but we've seen so many Canadian entrepreneurs rise to the challenge. And I want to tell you a few stories because there's no tried and true way of running a business during a global pandemic. There's no book. Yet we've seen so many that have pivoted to find new and creative ways to adapt to their ever-changing circumstances. I mean, there's so many great stories. I want to tell you just a few who embraced the digital way early on and leveraged their existing assets and resources to deepen the loyalty of their existing customers during the pandemic. So this picture here is Bobby Rassett. And Bobby is a Calgary company. She's the founder of a tech company called Virtual Gurus. 4 years ago, Bobby didn't even have a website, but today she's running a thriving 6-figure digit company. Virtual Gurus offers virtual assistant services. And when the pandemic hit, she stuck to her values. I think that was very important, despite her business was very hardly hit at first. But her values was focusing on supporting marginalized communities such as Indigenous, LGBTQ+, and people of color. And what she realized that she saw a lot of her clients and her startup friends in the startup community were taking major hits and were laying off their staff. And so her company gave 110 startup companies free services. She said, you can have my services for free. And then she gave all small business owners 40% off for the month and said, if you need to access our services, we'll give you 40% off. And this was good for her as well, because it allowed her to keep her employees employed, because most of them come from marginalized communities. So she knew that was so important to keep them to be able to put food on the table. And so the philosophy really of paying it forward really paid off for her, because you know that a lot of these businesses that took her up on her offer actually ended up turning into long-term clients of hers. And the number of clients that she has jumped by 66% a year later. So it shows it can really pay off to do things like that. Another story is Andrea Mulligan. And Andrea Mulligan is the co-owner of Sleeping Giant Brewing Company. And this is a company in Thunder Bay, a brewing company. And they were, the brewing company was an essential service, so they kept on working. But what she found is that her employees were struggling to get to work because they couldn't find childcare. A lot of them had young families, and they didn't have childcare because all the schools and the daycares were closed down. So she needed to find a way to get her employees back to work, and she could see the stress that they were having in doing this. But she found an opportunity. in their brewery, they have they had a room that they were using, had been using to do brew tastings and to do events, and obviously it had been closed because of the pandemic. So she saw that space and said, why don't I turn that into a daycare for my employees' children? And it gives them peace of mind to be able to come to work and to have their children just a few steps away. And that's what she did. And that way they could all come back to work. And they were very pleased for it. Then there's Savannah Tardif, who's the CEO of a company called BU Cosmetics. And she sells cosmetics. But what she had to do is she was selling online before the pandemic. And this was important. But her business has grown tenfold in the months following the pandemic. And a lot of this was because she immediately did some good planning and optimized her website, because she knew that she'd have to find a way to get her products to her customers. And that's exactly what she did. So the pandemic it has been very hard for all entrepreneurs, but it can also be a catalyst for many who are looking towards the future. And women entrepreneurs have played such a key role in our country's economic growth and the development. So we must do everything we can to support them. We need to keep advancing, and we need all of us to work towards that. We want women entrepreneurs to build, to transform, and to advance their businesses. So BDC, our strategy for women entrepreneurs, can be summarized into 4 pillars. The first one is finance. So our finance solution allows them to secure financing to grow their businesses, and during the pandemic, to keep their business operations even afloat, or to get the support through the recovery period. And then our development pillar focuses on supporting women entrepreneurs in their acquisition of both digital and financial skills, especially when it is clear that digital transformation is critical to business survival. And this is why we've really focused its development support to help women entrepreneurs implement technology solutions and underpin new business models. And then thirdly is connect. Connect is a key access because it's helping women entrepreneurs to build their e-networks and connecting with women entrepreneur ecosystems to open new doors for them and to access new markets and gain brand visibility and attract new clients. This also includes embracing supplier diversity, which is so important. And we're encouraging them to consider certifying as a diverse supplier to access new procurement opportunities as companies understand the importance of having their supply chain look like their customers and look like the Canadian landscape. And last but not least is getting inspired. And this is so important. This is getting inspired by the success of other women-led businesses. And it helps them to share, understand, and undertake best practices to remain competitive. This has been particularly useful during the pandemic when the confinement has required many service offerings to adapt to the new realities through technology transformation that has led to an increased need for e-commerce. And it's the old adage that, you can't be what you can't see. And so we feel that's really important. We create a community where women entrepreneurs can see what's possible and to connect with each other and to share those stories and to be role models for others. So the conversations that we have with our clients are about strengthening their business skills. It's about networking with other enterprise leaders. It's about fine-tuning their business strategies. It's about learning best practices. And it's about building lasting relationships with peers and with mentors. Plus, we have a massive library of free resources in the enterprise toolkit of our website. And there's so many of them. And if you do anything after this talk, what I do recommend is you go to bdc.ca and go under the Entrepreneurs Toolkit. We have all free, lots of free advice, ebooks, blogs, stories, tools. And there's a couple that I wanted to point you to if you're interested that I really like. And I find women entrepreneurs in particular have really, really needed during these times. And the first one is a 2-part online course called Financial Fundamentals. And the second one is called Taking Control of Your Cash Flow Guide. And so those are really, really valuable because cash flow has been really important during this time, and looking at every line and looking at making sure that they have the cash flow to survive, even down to the day. And then there's also a cash flow quiz that you can take afterward to check your understanding, because some people think they understand cash flow, and then after taking this cash flow quiz, they realize that they really don't. So that's been really important. So we have, at BDC, we have 62,000 Canadian entrepreneurs that we were able to help. And we have 62,000 excellent stories to tell, all Canadian small and medium-sized businesses who all continue every day to continue to survive, and in many cases are continuing to thrive. And our job is to help entrepreneurs overcome the challenges that they face, one entrepreneur at a time. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That was really informative. For everyone on this Zoom chat, I have put a link in the chat to BDC's Entrepreneurs Toolkit. I know that it's something we're often posting on social media as well and directing our members to, so please feel free to check that out. Before we move into Q&A, there was one question that had come up in the chat. Laura, when you were reviewing some of the stats on women's participation, the question was, does that include nonprofit organizations?
No, that is, well, small and medium. So that number comes from Statistics Canada, which is all businesses that have one employee or more. So I don't think it would include nonprofit.
Great, thank you. So at this point, we will open it up to questions from the participants. If you have a question, you can just unmute your mic. Feel free to turn on your webcam if you like, and we'll happily answer your questions. We're a bit of a quiet group.
That's okay. It's a Monday morning.
I guess I'll go ahead and ask. Thanks for answering my question. I was curious about that because in Alberta, nonprofits are considered businesses. They have to abide by the Business Act. So it's a little bit different. And so I'm just curious, and as a client diversity advocate, or as that's your job, I guess, what kind of sort of engagement does BDC do, or what do you think works for, let's say, Indigenous communities to increase entrepreneurship or diversity in business?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. Under my mandate is, we understand that I've been talking about women entrepreneurs specifically in celebration of International Women's Day, but the challenges are similar and even more exacerbated for Indigenous entrepreneurs, for Black entrepreneurs, as we've seen. And the intersectionality of that is so important. So I mean, we're focusing on all diversity. We understand that that diverse communities have a lack of access to capital, to resources. So for Indigenous entrepreneurs, we've actually, for a very, very long time, have had an Indigenous group, and it's a focus that the bank continues to focus on. And as a matter of fact, what we're doing now is we're actually looking to increase our support. So what we're doing is we are just undertaking this to have Indigenous champions across the whole country, because we know that Indigenous entrepreneurs are everywhere. They're living everywhere throughout Canada. And so we need to make sure that we have individuals within the bank that understand the challenges that Indigenous entrepreneurs have, and the lack of resources that they have, and so we are teaching them and giving them the tools they need so they can reach out to Indigenous entrepreneurs, because it's something that Indigenous entrepreneurs, and any diverse entrepreneur for that matter, may not do. They just don't have the network. They don't know who to contact. And so we need to arm our account managers, our people that are in the field, that are working with all entrepreneurs every day. So when they can seek out Indigenous entrepreneurs, or champions will seek out Indigenous entrepreneurs and listen to them. I think that's really, really important. The first step is to ask questions and to listen. listen to them, and then give them the tools that they need. And those tools may come from us. I mean, we have an Indigenous loan that we offer, or we have financing, we have advisory services, but we can't do every deal and we can't help every entrepreneur. But we need to make it our business that we understand who else in the ecosystem is out there. There's a lot of great organizations in the ecosystem that are out there that are also working with Indigenous entrepreneurs. So we need to be the catalyst that makes the introduction, so those entrepreneurs can get the tools and the resources and introduction to the people that they need to grow.
Great, thank you. And just to maybe bounce off that question a little bit, are there any Indigenous organizations that you would recommend, particularly for Northern businesses, or even contacts or resources for the Yellowknife business community?
Well, I mean, the Yellowknife business community, I wouldn't be able to say generally. I know that we have a couple of our employees on the line, I believe, if I'm just looking. Rod Nickel, I see the ear here, and Ryan McLean, I see the ear here. So they are more familiar with specifically Yellowknife, so maybe they can weigh in if they know I know we have great relationships with NACA and with a lot of the groups, but any particular, Rod, Ryan, feel free to speak up.
Am I there?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hello, good morning, everybody. Yeah, Adil, who is our account manager in the Yellowknife market, to Laura's point about being a catalyst, is someone that is a great resource and connected with many of the different partners. And at times there could be programs that may be undertaken by, for example, CanNor. And so we would try and, keep abreast of some of those different program offerings and be able to make some introductions, or with some of the community futures or Aboriginal financial institutions that might be appropriate for a particular geography that the entrepreneur is in. So understanding some of the other organizations that are providing funding, and often we'll work hand in hand where we may do a piece of the financing, and Adil, for example, may have a partner who has an appropriate, whether it be a grant program or just a little different loan product offering, that we can sort of work hand in hand. And that's one of the things I guess we do pride ourselves on, as working in partnership with others. To Laura's point, we don't try and be the be all and end all. We're one cog in the wheel. So, Adil, I think I just saw his information pop up there, is a great resource, and then has those connections. And it does, in some cases, location specific. So I think depending on the location of the entrepreneur, the particular partner that may be at play would change a little bit. So hope that helps a bit.
Thank you, Ryan. Rod, do you have anything to add?
Hi, good morning, everyone. No, I think Ryan kind of covered it off, and the geography of Northwest Territories, none of it, the North in general, it really is specific to where the entrepreneur is located. So first point of contact, I'd say just reach out to a dealer myself, and we'll put you in touch with the right partner for your business.
And I think this is really important that, and this is exactly why we have the channel where we're going to a champion model, because, and things are always changing. I mean, I think we as a country are really becoming to understand the importance of having more women entrepreneurs, more Indigenous entrepreneurs, more Black entrepreneurs. And so there's a lot of organizations that are also increasing their commitment and their offerings to a lot of these communities. And so it's really important that we have champions that have their feet on the ground to really understand that particular geography and who the partners are and what we have to offer and how we can help. And sometimes it's often just collective. It's often, I say it's all of us being around that entrepreneur and giving them a hug, and we all offer different things.
Great, thank you. Were there any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands or unmuting. Well, thank you very much, Laura, for taking this time with us this morning. I found the data that you shared very informative. And just to let everyone know as well that we've been recording this presentation and it will be available on our website There are some links Claudine just shared with me in terms of opportunities online. There's a great online tool for Indigenous businesses that I will repost in the chat for anyone who's interested. And yes, thank you and enjoy the rest of International Women's Day. We have a whole day full of programming scheduled, so I hope that all of our attendees are able to tune in for those sessions. And once again, thank you so much, Laura, for joining us today. Yeah, it was greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. No, you have some great speakers coming up, so I congratulate you on that.
Excellent. Well, with that, we will wrap things up and thanks again.
Thank you.